Major bag alert, major bag alert, major bag alert, major bag alert, folks. We got multiple bag alerts, okay? The streak continues, okay? Justin Jefferson, as expected, destroys the receiver market. Jaylen Waddle gets his bag. CMC breaks his market as well. Tyreek Hill looking for money here, there, everywhere. Ceedee Lamb is letting Jerry Jones know the time is ticking. And post June 1st designations and the remaining free agents that are available. All of this and more on the 10th episode of the Football Junkies podcast. I'm your host, your GM, who is not on a team right now, but is scouting people 3 years in advance. Kale, let's get it. All right, folks. So here we go. Once again, another week. The streak continues for bag alerts. This is amazing. Okay, this is historical at this point. All right. Now, let's get into these details because we don't want to waste any more time because this episode is money talk, all right? This is all we talking about. Just money. Money, money, money. All right. So, Vikings receiver and one of the best receivers in the league right now, Justin Jefferson, inked a record 4-year, $140 million extension to stay with the Vikings. Okay, now let's go over the details. Okay, so according to Spot Rack, he receives a $36.9 million signing bonus. $110 million of his deal is guaranteed, and he will be making $35 million a year. Now, let's be real here, folks. Okay, this was going to happen, whether it be now, later into the season, whenever. Justin Jefferson was going to reset the market. He was going to. Now it was a matter of how much money is he going to demand, and how much is the receiver market going to reset. If we're being real here, okay. In my time of watching football, because there was a period of time where I was watching basketball a lot, with LeBron and the big three and whatnot, and into football, basketball, football. But now that I'm really committed to football, this is probably the one off season that I can remember, and I can be wrong. Some you guys can say in the comments on our Instagram page at football_junkies pod that we have seen multiple receivers receive the bag. Okay, we've seen Mike Evans get the bag. We've seen Nico Collins, Jaylen Waddle, A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, now Justin Jefferson. Value of the receiver now, in my mind, is at an all-time high. Okay, we are seeing teams now who are becoming more aggressive and trying to obtain the number one receiver over the quarterback. Okay, just because of how many receivers come out in the draft every single year. Folks, we are seeing it's almost like a factory. Okay, when you see the Justin Jeffersons of the world, the Cooper Kupps of the world, DK Metcalfs, AJ Browns, Mike Evans of the world, when you see that, that's you have to in some ways ride that wave, because if you don't, then the next best option is you're gonna have to overpay for one of these guys or for one of these types of guys, right? So I say all that to say this. With him resetting the market, that now paves the way for other receivers that could be looking for money as well. For instance, Amari Cooper, Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins, and Drake London, Garrett Wilson, whoever else you guys want to name. This now dictates their market. So, in some ways, it's a great thing for the Vikings because they keep their number one player on the team. But at the same time, if you're a team and you have a receiver who was disgruntled, Bengals, 49ers, listen to me, and Cowboys, this puts you in a really bad spot because the number is going to continue to go up. It's going to. Nothing is going to change. Now, is it going to get to a point where it's going to be like the quarterback market where, people are making 50, almost close to $60 million? Possibly. I don't know. But it's just growing and growing and growing, and it's going to just continue to rise. That's just what it is now. Teams are willing to invest into a true number one receiver before they invest into a, average to above average quarterback. And we're seeing that. And that sort of transitions us to the next bag alert. Jaylen Waddle, Dolphin for not Dolphin receiver for the Dolphins, excuse me, inked a 3-year, $84.7 million extension to stay with him. He gets an $18.8 million signing bonus. $76 million is guaranteed, and he will be making $28.2 million a year. Now, when you really look at this, right, it's a good deal, okay? Because by the time the deal is over, he's still going to be in his prime. So that means he could re-up and either stay with the Dolphins or he can hit free agency and, test the waters and see exactly what happens, correct? And so, that also sort of takes the pressure off of them of trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to be able to, sign our rookies and sign our, whatever player that we're trying to get, while at the same time create cap space to try to figure out what they're going to do with, Tua and whatnot. So not surprising that signing. Definitely heard some rumblings, for a while now that Jaylen Waddle was definitely looking for a deal, but it definitely came at a shocker at how quickly they came to an agreement. Now, when we look at, for instance, Tyreek Hill and his situation is a little bit complicated, and I'm going to explain why. In 2022, when he inked his 4-year, $120 million deal, he was only making $30 million a year. At that time, if I'm not mistaken, he was the highest paid receiver. Now that you have Justin Jefferson, who reset the market, who is to say Tyreek Hill won't ask for $40 or $45 million a year? Granted, he is worth the money. It's just a matter of, will the Dolphins be willing to pay him? Because let's be real here. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do with Tua and that whole situation. And we don't know exactly how things are going to go. We don't know if Tua is going to want to do a holdout or whatever the case may be. We don't know. And, it's great that Tyreek Hill wants to finish his career with the Dolphins and whatnot. But at the same time, they have a lot of people that they have to pay. And they have a lot of question marks that they have to start, figuring out within the next few years. Okay. Especially, when you have players like Jalen Phillips, Javon Holland, and company who, pretty soon they're going to be looking for deals, big deals. And if you don't try to figure out or at least get an idea of what their number is looking like, then you're basically going to be blindsided. And then next thing you know, you're going to be trying to figure out, okay, are we going to lowball them? Are we going to highball them? Are we going to try to put the squeeze on them? What exactly are we going to try to do? Right? And so what you see is a lot of times, and this has sort of been a trend that I've been sort of looking at recently, is that players are willing to take less for a shorter term deal so that they could re-up again and hit free agency while they're still in their prime, compared to taking the traditional 4 and by the time that contract is over, you're either out of your prime or injury ridden, or people just don't want to take care of your contract. Okay. And so if you're the Dolphins GM, you have a lot of things you have to figure out, because you're in a situation where one or two things are going to happen. Either you're going to franchise Tua, and then once the season is over with, you're probably not going to, pay him and just let him walk and hit free agency, and then probably see if you can, draft a quarterback, or you're going to ink him to a deal and somebody else is going to have to go, But again, I'm not on the team, so I really don't have to worry about that. Now, moving on to CMC, or as we all know, Christian McCaffrey. This curveball that just happened yesterday. Literally, as I was thinking about recording and I was, finishing up on my talking points for this podcast, for this episode specifically, that's when I checked my phone. Boom, Chris McCaffrey inks an extension. So let's go over his details, right? So he inked a 2 year, $38 million extension with the 49ers. He gets a $14.2 million bonus, and he gets $24 million guaranteed. And he will be making $19 million a year, which would make him still the highest paid running back in the league. When you look at Christian McCaffrey, right? Christian McCaffrey has been consistently been the best running back in the league. Okay, you're talking about someone who can play running back at a very elite level and can also double as a slot receiver. That's very rare for him to do something like that. And then on top of that, with him being such a very pivotal role on the 49ers offense, they needed to make sure that they kept Christian McCaffrey because they realize and that they know that in some ways, not to be, not to be a pun or anything, but this is the last dance for the 49ers because they have a lot of veteran, players on their team who have a lot of mileage on their bodies. Their contracts are getting, a little bit out of reach, and it's just time to hit the button, right? When you have contracts, like Trent Williams, George Kittle, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, and company, that stuff adds up over time, right? And you can't continue to say, oh, we're just going to push it down, a few years. Not to mention, pretty soon you're going to have to pay Brock Purdy as well. So you have a lot of people, a lot of younger players that are going to be looking for either their first or their second contract or whatever the case may be. So, this is a win now situation. So, if you're someone like a Brandon Ayuk, you might have to put, contract talks on the back burner. I'm not saying that because, of all the speculation that, Steelers fans want Brandon Ayuk, but at this point, the 49ers are basically sending a clear message. Either you're on the boat or you're not. Simple as that. It's either you're in or you're out. Okay? They can, and with them drafting Ricky Pearsall, in the first round of this year's draft, and then drafting another receiver later into the draft, that's sending the message like, listen, either one or two things are going to happen. Either we're going to ship you to a crappy team and you get your money, or you can stay on this team and you could possibly compete to get a title. One of the two. And we can win this thing with you, or we can win this thing without you. So, if you're Brandon Ayuk, you have a tough decision that you have to make. They gave an extension to Jennings, excuse me. They gave an extension to Chris McCaffrey. They can still make some moves. It's just, you're holding things up, and it also doesn't help that you are, your social media posts are a little bit, weird, and, in some ways are taking jabs at the 49ers. Like, listen, they can ship you away. And if they ship you away and if they win a Super Bowl, you're going to be sick to your stomach. I'm telling you, bro. I'm telling you. Listen. But, hey, again, I'm not on the team, so I can't have those conversations with someone like a Brandon Ayuk. All right? Now, moving on to CeeDee Lamb, okay? CeeDee Lamb situation is at times, you have to laugh at it, honestly, if you're not a Cowboys fan. And the reason why I say that is because there's just no way. There's just no way that they literally waited too long for them to figure out what they're going to do with CeeDee Lamb. And now they're in a situation where now CeeDee Lamb is going to try to get as close as he can to what Justin Jefferson just got. I don't even know if people realize that. You should have taken care of this last year. Because last year, you could have dictated the market easily. And you wouldn't be in this problem right now. But you waited so long that now look, Justin Jefferson has reset the market. CeeDee Lamb knows he's probably the only receiver right now that can get as close as he can to Justin Jefferson. He knows that. And so one or two things are going to happen. Either Jerry is going to pay him, and he may hate doing it, but Jerry likes to take care of his players, or they're going to let him walk in free agency. And if you let someone like a CeeDee Lamb walk in free agency, good God Almighty have mercy on your soul, because he is going to get the Brinks truck, okay? Brinks, well, multiple Brinks trucks, okay? If we're being real here, the Cowboys are somewhat in a crazy situation as well, because they are, sort of at a crossroads, as like a lot of teams are. Do we pay the quarterback, or do we pay the number one receiver, right? And so what's happening is, and I don't know this for a fact, but I wouldn't be surprised if a report came out and sort of confirmed it. But there's probably an internal struggle going on who do we prioritize first? Do we prioritize Dak, or do we prioritize Ceedee Lamb? Because let's be real here, Dak Prescott is probably going to be demanding over 50 something $1 million a year. Okay, and Ceedee Lamb, he's going to be wanting to probably get as close as he can to resetting the market. And then, not to mention, to throw a monkey wrench in there, Michael Parsons apparently yesterday said, "I'm not really attending OTAs and whatnot because I'm trying to preserve my body." Bro, we know that you're trying to get a deal. We know you're trying to get a deal. It don't take a rocket scientist to know that what you're trying to do is you're trying to get paid early. But again, if you're the Cowboys front office, this puts you in a bind, because all three of those players are the biggest players on your team right now. The most popular, even in their own, positions and whatnot. They are the creme de la creme, and you have to, figure out how you're going to be able to pay them. And unfortunately, someone is not going to get the money that they want. Now, is it going to be Dak? Is it going to be CeeDee Lamb? Or is it going to be Michael Parsons? Who is it going to be? That is the $1 million question, and I think everybody would like to know. Because if we're being real here, it's not like the Cowboys are in a situation where, they're in the same bubble as the Lions, the 49ers, the Ravens, or the Chiefs, where, they just need a player or two away and they could possibly make a Super Bowl run. No, there's still a lot of holes on that team. And, if you would create an extension now, in some ways, it would sort of give you sort of a safety blanket for next year. Once you have to figure out and money crunch, different contracts, and then figure out if you're going to do something for Michael Parsons and whatnot. So it's just a very, 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 very difficult situation right now. But on the other side, let's talk about these free agents, the notable free agents that are still available, as well as the post June 1st designation. Because I know you're probably wondering, what is post June 1st designation? Because you hear it all the time when somebody gets released and whatnot. Okay, so get your pens and papers. Let's get into it. Right. So according to Pro Football Network, right, post June 1st designation basically means if a team cuts a player before June 1st, all future guarantees and allocated signing bonus will be on the team's cap books at once. However, any player released or traded after June 1st will have his dead money spread over 2 seasons, right? Now, as you know, as I just said, you're probably wondering what's dead money. Okay, we're going to explain that as well. Dead money is basically cap space that was designated to a player that's no longer on the roster, right? So for instance, when there's a player that gets cut, right, and they're like, on the books they'll say, dead money cap of 15 million or $10 million. That basically means that was the cap space that was allocated to that one set player on the roster. And with him getting cut, basically, it's dead money because he's not on the team, right? Now, here is an example, right, of post June 1st designation, right? So a player who has 3 years left on his deal with an allocated, allocated $5 million signing bonus each season, the team will take on the 15 million in dead money in 2024, or 5 million in 3 seasons, because 5 times 5 times 5, no, 5 times 3, excuse me, is 15. Man, I need to go back to school. I can't believe I just butchered that. Oh man, that was bad. Now, An example of a post June 1st designation is if the team waited June 2nd to trade or release that player, the team will only take 5 million in dead money in 2024 and then 10 million in 2025. Now, if we're being real here, and it all really depends on the type of GM that you have, because there are some GMs who are cap savvy, who, they find ways to create cap space and they find ways to, you know, move money down, 2 or 3 years in advance, or whatever the case may be. If you have a GM who is like that, whenever you get into a pinch, in some ways that can be good. And then there's other times where, it's just best that you take on, you know, basically all of the cap and just, and then be free, for the next, however many years, just because, you don't have to worry about that no more. Compared to, it's like, okay, this year we're going to take on 5 million. This year we're going to take on 5 million. This million we're going to take on 5 million. This year we're going to take on 5 million. This year we're going to take on 5 million. That stuff adds up over time. It may not seem like it at first because it's like, oh, it's only 5 million, but it's like, no, that is a lot of money, especially when you're in a pinch, especially when, for instance, there may be a player that might be wanting to get traded, and he has specifically said that he wants to go to your team. If you don't have the money, then guess what? You can't pull that type of trade off. But, if you're in a position where you have that flexibility, then, you can do something. That's why a lot of the playoff caliber teams, the one thing that they do have in common is they have flexibility. They have flexibility when they need it. When they're in a bind and they realize that there is a player that, could definitely be a major upgrade to the team, then they'll, make some changes, make some moves, and they'll make sure that they have, more than enough money and flexibility to absorb whatever contract that player had, while at the same time figuring out a way to reconstruct it and fix it up and whatnot. Now, for instance, let's give a real life example. For instance, so once June 1st, passed, right? The Broncos basically took on the cap hit for Russell Wilson, so it was like over 50 some million dollars, right? So in doing so, with the Steelers giving him a vet minimum, they'll only be taking, I think, between 52 to 51 million dollar dead cap hit, right? Now, the Broncos are in a situation where they can do a few things. They can either spread it, spread the dead cap hit over, the next few years, or they can just take it all this season and then, be freed up, for the remaining, for the remaining years. Because let's be real here, they're in a situation where they're probably going to want to reset the market for PS2. So, that's just a good example right there. Now, let's get into these notable free agents that are still around. Now, probably wondering, why in the world these people, why aren't, people still not getting signed? Teams are in a phase now where they're trying to, get a feel for exactly what are the weak spots on their roster and see if maybe they need to possibly make an upgrade from outside of the team, or just let things play out. So let's go over these notable free agents and then probably make a little bit of a prediction for some of them, right? So we have Eddie Jackson, Stephon Gilmore, J.C. Jackson, Justin Simmons, Xavier Howard, David Bakhtiari, Jamal Adams, Ryan Tannehill, Marcus May, Hunter Renfrow, and DJ Humphries, just to name a few, right? So when you look at it, right, some of those players are a little bit, up in age. There's others who, are dealing with injuries, and then you have others who they're just waiting for the right moment, right? So for instance, when you have someone like Justin Simmons, right? Justin Simmons is still one of the best, safeties in the league. However, my not my understanding, but my theory is possibly the reason why nobody is signing him is because he's probably looking for one more payday. And teams are basically telling him, like, listen, you're up in age, your play has somewhat, come down a little bit recently, and, we're just trying to, get somebody to just come onto the team, right? And so, for him, he's probably thinking in the back of his mind, oh, okay, well then I'll just wait. Somebody will give me the bag. And it's like, no, not really. But if I can make a prediction for Justin Simmons, I probably would predict that he'll probably go maybe to the Ravens. Well, no, not to the Ravens. I don't know because see, he's a very unique player only because teams really don't value safeties as much, and it's somewhat showed in free agency this year. The biggest one that made a crazy move that got a lot of attention was C.J. Gardner Johnson, and even then he went back to the Eagles. He went back to the Eagles, so it's like okay, cool. That's not really nothing. So if I'm Justin Simmons, one or two things: either I'm going to go to one of these playoff caliber teams, or I'm just going to wait until unfortunately somebody has an injury and the team gets desperate, and then we start having those talks, right? Because who is to say there's nothing stopping him from potentially getting cut, right, in training camp if he was to sign to a team right now, or any of these players, if we're being real here. No matter what their highlights, or no matter what their numbers show, they can still get cut, right? Now, do I think he would go to a team, for less? Possibly, but it has to be for the right situation. Though. It has to be a very unique situation. J.C. Jackson, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's taking a step away from football to work on his mental health. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. If I am wrong, then I'll be forthcoming and apologize in advance. Now with Stephon Gilmore is a very unique situation because even though yes he is an older player, he can still go with the best of them, right? We saw that when he was with the Cowboys, he was still holding his own somewhat against a lot of number one and number two receivers. He was doing that. And not to mention, he has the flexibility to play both man and zone, right? When he was, younger and in his prime, he was primarily a man coverage, man to man corner. But now that he's gotten older, you see that he can play just as good zone as he did man, right? And so you want someone like him on your team because one, he's won Super Bowl, so he has experience, has playoff experience, and he knows how to play receivers really well. Name a receiver that has really given Stephon Gilmore problems lately, and we could probably have a good debate about it. But when you look at people like Jamal Adams, David Bakhtiari, Ryan Tannehill, right? David Bakhtiari is in a situation where he is coming off of a major injury. He is an older player, and teams may not value him as much compared to if he just stayed with the Packers or whatever the case may be. And it also doesn't help that the door might be closed for him to go to the Jets simply because they drafted their future left tackle, right? So it sort of makes things a little bit difficult for him, but injuries happen all the time. So I wouldn't be surprised if he gets picked up pretty soon. Now, when you look at Jamal Adams is in a situation where he has definitely regressed. Okay, since being traded from the Jets and then going to the Seahawks, of course, and getting his money, he really hasn't been playing the best. He really hasn't. Now I've heard rumors and saw reports that he would be open to going back to the Seahawks, but as a linebacker, and it's like, okay. But at the same time, it's like you regressed and you just haven't really shown like, okay, maybe there's a little bit something. Maybe there's something that we can work with. Maybe there's something that we just got to pull out of him. Like, there really isn't a whole lot to show for Jamal Adams. Like, I'm just being real here. The injuries just basically like sapped all the potential that he had, because let's be real here, when he was with the Jets, he was all pro, one of the best safeties, was making plays and had crazy highlights and whatnot. But it's like now it's like, ooh, 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 and it's not a good woo. It's a bad woo. It's like, I don't know about this one, boy. I don't know about this one. Um, but in all jokes aside, it definitely is a weird situation. I know he like recently he had talks with the Ravens, and that really didn't materialize. But they're probably just playing the waiting game. Maybe he's probably talking to other teams, try to get a feel for the best opportunity, whatever. Kudos to him and whatnot. But when you look at someone like a Ryan Tannehill, most likely he's going to be on the team. He probably will. Even though yes, he's up in age and whatnot, he could be a good backup quarterback. Like if your quarterback just is going to be out for like 2 games, Ryan Tannehill could do it. Okay, all you gotta do is tell him what you want him to do, get the job done. All right, he's not gonna wow you. He's not gonna sell out and do all this different type of stuff. No, he is just gonna just stick to the plan, do whatever he needs to do, execute the plan, win the game. That's all he's gonna do, right? And he's cheap. Now there was definitely rumors going around that he might go to the Steelers simply because his old offensive coordinator is now our offensive coordinator. Thank God it did not happen because oh my God, that would have been a disaster. But that's going to be another episode, which that might turn into an hour-long rant. But all jokes aside here, when you look at people like Xavier Howard, Eddie Jackson, they can still play at a pretty high level. It's just a matter of are they looking for money or they're looking for opportunity to win, right? And so if they're looking for an opportunity to win, they're probably, assessing everybody and probably seeing, okay, is this the best position for me? Is this the best position for me? Could I do this? Could I do that? Whatever the case may be. So I would not be surprised if they get picked up, probably like to the middle to late part of the season. They'll probably go to like a playoff team. I wouldn't be surprised if they go like to the Niners or the Chiefs or whatever the case may be. But in all, just to wrap things up because I don't want to keep on putting out long episodes for you guys unless you guys like long episodes. If you guys do, let me know under the comments on our Instagram page at football_junkies pod, and I'll be sure to do that. I'll just have to add in more stuff, probably getting special guests and whatnot. We will be having special guests soon. Just have to plan and make sure everything is right for scheduling and whatnot. But if I can be real here, a lot of those players that I listed, they're probably going to be on a team sometime this season. Now, is it going to be a team that's going to be, in the playoffs? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't see. But to say that they're not going to be on a team this upcoming season is an outlier. Okay, somebody's going to get hurt. Teams are going to get desperate. Teams are going to be looking for somebody to either be an upgrade or just to be a placeholder until that player gets healthy again, whatever the case may be. So looking forward to them, maybe Xavier Howard want to go to the Steelers, maybe, just to open, just putting it out there. You can come to the six time, six time, six time Pittsburgh Steelers, But I'm going to end this episode right here. If you guys like what you guys are listening, please, 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 please download the episodes. It helps us to be able to give the fix that you guys need. Again, you can follow us on Instagram at football_junkies_pod. Again, that's football_junkies_pod. YouTube content will be coming out. I know I keep on saying that, but we're definitely working on trying to get that out there. TikTok content is also coming out there as well. Trying to finalize some stuff with them as well. A lot of things working on in the background. I can't tell you everything, but stay tuned. A lot of great things are happening in the background. Please, 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 leave a star review on whatever streaming platform that you guys listening to our podcast. That would definitely be appreciated. That lets us know exactly what things you guys want to hear more of and what things you don't want to hear at all. And as always, I love you guys. I hope I gave you guys the fix that you need this week. And until then, Peace and love. I'm out.